On this episode of Black in the Stacks, I chat with Christopher Fleming, aka the People's Librarian, about his library journey, how imposter syndrome impacts librarians, and his idea that libraries don't fail because people don't care, but because the systems, how they talk, work, and move, aren't built with intention, and how poor institutional design can lead to both poor patron engagement and staff frustrations. Christopher Fleming is a public library leader and librarian with over a decade of experience in community engagement, access, and organizational improvement. Rising from frontline service into management, he applies systems thinking, data informed strategies, and is the creator of the Library Systems Persuasion Model, which examines how people, processes, and institutional design influence engagement and outcomes. All right. Well, good evening. Good evening. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. And thank you for joining me tonight. Yeah, let's jump right in. So
Absolutely.
tell our listeners who you are. How did you find yourself in librarianship, background? Just give us a short introduction of who you are.
My name is Christopher A. Fleming. I just earned my Master's of Library Information Science this past May from the University of South Carolina. I've been working in libraries for 10 years, and I have been a manager going in on Valentine's Day will be my fourth year at my location. Um, I got into libraries by being a natural nerd in particular. I've always been that book nerd kind of guy. Before working at a library, I had a job at a bookstore called Second and Charles, down in Irmo, South Carolina, and then from there, I went to management in Party City, uh, which was better money, but not as good work balance and all that good stuff. It was going crazy. I knew we was reaching the precipice of either me leaving, me getting fired, or me and the management fighting. But around that time, I saw a job posting on Indeed for the library that I work at now, and I have a friend of mine, a brother, really, who actually already worked at that branch. He put in a good word for me. I got the interview, and the funny thing is, I remember I have a background in spoken word poetry, and I was telling them like these are some of the programs that we can bring. But I did a poem then called "Letters to My Unborn Children." I didn't have children at the time. Had the whole place crying, snotting. I walked out that bad boy. I like, yeah,
Yeah.
got that one. You know what I'm saying? And shortly thereafter, that's exactly what happened. But I chose to actually pursue librarianship, as in actually get my master's and all of that. I was actually working at that branch that I got hired at. Came across the book. Do I have it around? The Man Who Built a Library. It was a children's book on Arturo Schomburg, and it was that children's book that I was like, yo, he, there's a history of black folks collecting books. I'm like, I do that right now. I have a manuscript from Timbuktu in my personal collection right over here, as old or older than America itself. So, and then like from there, I read his actual biography, and then I was hooked. And then something, something, something. You know, here I am
Yeah,
today.
yeah, you are. That's what's up. Two things. One, I love Second and Charles. Like the
Yeah.
the the vintage books that they have in there are really good. But also, like I collect vinyl, and they have an amazing vinyl assortment. The other thing too is I was also a manager at Party City once upon a time
Wow, that's crazy. Where at?
in Georgia.
Really? That is
Uh-huh.
crazy.
Yep.
That is crazy. Like, what are the odds of that?
Right. Wow. Okay, so you got your background about librarianship and stuff. How did you become the people's librarian as you are well known out here in these social media streets?
Yeah. I mean, I'm people focused first. Like even when I was just an associate, but especially as I rose up the ranks, I paid more attention to the demographics of my area. To ensure that I'm giving proper value to the needs of the community that I'm working in. I tend to choose uh, communities, Black communities. Um, I mean, however, the the science behind it all could apply to any place at any given time. I just have an affinity for my little country babies, like my first branch was like my little hood babies, you know what I'm saying? So like the branch that I'm working at now, I'm more rural. Them my little country babies. But my overall vision for both of these areas was to impact the literacy rate. That is my sole um, mission as a librarian. Everything else are kind of just side quests of the overall mission of increasing the literacy rate of my community, because I know that literacy is the foundation of everything else. And if we don't intervene as soon as possible, we're going to continue to try to play catch up as early as the fourth grade on. So a lot of the programs and things that I do now, I intervene between kindergarten and third grade. We've done literacy programs at my school. I was in school at my library. I've been literacy trained through the science of reading. That's how big of a partnership that I've developed with our education studio, that they paid for me to get this $1,500 training on literacy. My whole staff has been trained on the free level. We had a program called Reading Intervention Starts Here. My education studio, through our partnerships, just won a grant from the Library of Congress, a $10,000 grant. Only 24 people around the world got that, and they was like, "Yo, Chris, it was partly due to the partnership that you do." So like that's my purpose, um, is tackling that literacy issue, and I do that through various means of edutainment.
So yeah, I mean, like when I hear like the people's librarian, it's a way to encourage people to not just use their library, but to support it as well, however they may see fit. But on your website, you mentioned that libraries don't have a relevance problem, but a persuasion problem.
Right.
So how do we distinguish between persuading someone to use a library, so outreach, right, trying to draw them in, and manipulating them? And then where is the ethical line for a librarian philosopher such as yourself?
Ooh, man. All right. So let's start with first the distinction between persuasion and manipulation. Manipulation is the act of coercing someone for selfish or nefarious ends.
Mhm.
Persuasion, in contrast, is the means of leading our patrons to services and books, etc., that they might not know that they even need, and it's only uncovered through building many relationships, having fruitful conversations, employing active listening, etc., to help draw a bridge between their problem and a solution, or an option of solutions that we have available uh, through the library and its services. The ethical line is something that I believe that we're watching in real time.
Mm,
Um, there's always have been, and I know one of the questions we're going to kind of touch on it. There's always been a debate on the concept of neutrality within libraries. Um, my stance is that we create the library, in a sense, to be persuasive, persuade them into the library to help the patron find whatever items or services that they're looking for. Um, we can explore various perspectives, thoughts, and philosophies vis-a-vis our programs, invited speakers, and so forth. I have no problem with that. And matter of fact, I encourage that. And to be sure. So I'm gonna sidestep that and say the library as an institution, it's built, the building in and of itself, in my view, is a neutral thing. The building, the place that is called the library. So I don't put anything on the windows. I don't put anything on that reflects necessarily the squabbles that are going on within the village. We need to be informed by the village, but not participate in the village's squabbles, lest we end up taking sides and we get placed in the position that I believe the library world is dealing with now, is that you stepped too visibly on one side of the political aisle versus another. So when the opposing political view people become in power, now you have to deal with retribution of taking a uh, more visible stance on the issues that our communities are dealing with. So, and the ethical line is, I've always seen a lot of this as a slippery slope if we're not careful. Because if the library as institution takes too much, takes a side on the village's squabbles, the librarian then no longer becomes one who ensures that we are following what the library's actual function is. This is a piece of the systems thinking here. What is the actual function of the library? To ensure that all information is available to all people by various means. But if we get into a point where our profession is politicized, whether it be on the left or whether it be on the right, we end up having people that's supposed to be the sentinels of knowledge, the trusted heart bringers of knowledge. If they become too swayed by the arguments that's going on, now that will end up seeping into the work that we do. Then that will end up causing bias in the work that we do. And now I've seen it personally on public forums and the like, where a lot of librarians saying, I'm not buying this, I'm not getting this book in our library from this person or this person due to their views. And that's when it becomes the slippery slope of librarian telling the public what is right and what's wrong versus having the information available for all, for the people to be able to make up their own decisions about what's right and what's wrong. So that's the hairline um, ethical stances that I see that the library world, and that's a very, very, very broad statement, and I mean it to be, because I know on the micro levels there's people who do things differently, but library world is just a wide overall thing, things that you can easily see when you log into any of the social medias and things like that. I believe that the library world is walking on a slippery slope of telling people what is right and what's wrong instead of being the director of the information overall. And if we continue to fall down that path, um, I don't know what will happen as a result of it. But there, those people who ended up participating in it, hands won't be as clean as they think they are.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, I agree with quite a bit of what you said, and I've said that before too. Where, um, it, I mean, as recently as a week ago, but a couple of years ago, where there was this sort of uproar about libraries being neutral, and I was like, they can't be, because um, not as deep of a level as you put it, but simply because of the people who work in it, right? Like, your collection development person, if you have one, picks and chooses materials for the library, right? But those selections are informed by a plethora of things. You would hope that your collection development specialist, if you have one, because a lot of libraries don't, but or they have at least one person that's in charge of adult, one person that's in charge of nonfiction, something to that effect. So those people are your collection development specialists. Um, they're picking and choosing what they think patrons might want. They're picking what patrons have suggested. They're picking what vendors have suggested. They're picking what publishers have suggested, to try and create a well-rounded collection so that there's a little bit of something for everybody. But I think that is near impossible to do. Much like when we do outreach, you can't reach everyone. Like at some like somewhere somebody's going to be left out or left behind or something like that. But I do 100% agree with you that libraries need to be a place where information can be available, free, open, unfettered, um, for that patron to make their own informed decisions about what it is that they want and how they choose to proceed in life once they've gathered and consumed these materials. Um, yeah, so we talked a little bit about, persuasion and manipulation, but you've developed a library systems persuasion model that focuses on people, process, place, and story. So can you talk a little bit about that model, and then out of the four dimensions that were listed, which one do you find is most often misunderstood by library leadership?
Yeah, sure. So the creation of the LSPM ended up being somewhat of a long arc, because it started maybe about 2 years ago at the NCAL conference. I went to NCAL down in New Orleans, and I had a lot of conversations. This first of all, this is my first conference ever, so that was super dope. And then it was in New Orleans, also super dope. And then it was like the one for Black people, which was also super dope. You know what I'm saying? So like a lot of colleagues that I've talked to solely online, I finally got to meet in person. But in those conversations, a repeated theme of the imposter syndrome came up, and how a lot of our people deal with it, and facing it and all that good stuff. But and that bothered me. That shook my spirit. It pissed me off. It was all of those things at once. Uh, to see my beautiful people who worked hard and earned their master's degree and did this and did all this work, even the paraprofessionals and so on and so forth, feel somehow lesser compared to their white counterparts for whatever reason. So the opportunity came through OG. I call him OG Richard Ashby and Literacy Nation, to be able to present at ALA the following year, this past one that was in Philly. So I ended up getting grasping that opportunity, and I did one called Confronting and Defeating the Imposter Syndrome. And with great acclaim. I told the people there that it was primarily for Black folks, but y'all can listen too, because a lot of people deal with it in various forms. Um, Side story from there, I almost had a book deal fully secured through that speech. Long story short, the contract was crazy. I didn't take that. So next SCLA comes, I do the lecture on persuasion, the art of library persuasion. Little do I know at the time that these various things that I'm talking about are becoming one large model. I just had to separate it from space and time and just kind of look at it, um, because I use this as the model of how I lead my branch. So the foundation of the LSPM was what's called systems thinking. I also have a great opportunity that in about 2 weeks I'm going to be taking a course at MIT on systems thinking, to further refine everything that I have, because I have a rough framework. I have a rough playbook that I've already given my staff, the things from my website, and just basically building the bike as I'm riding it. The part I believe that most people misunderstand is a little bit of a weaving of all of them. So we can begin with people. So there's people that exist within the system that is the library, whether you're an associate, supervisor, manager, just to keep it kind of basic with that.
Mm-hmm.
And they play their role in the overall function of the running of the library. Each of them have their place in there. But what also gets what gets overlooked is that person that's in that role is a system in and of themselves. I tell my people that my staff that want to rise into management is like, you have to be part psychologist, you have to be part philosopher, you have to be part sociologist, you have to be part mathematician, and all of these things, and you have to balance them in all such a way to keep the running of your branch as smooth as possible. You're dealing with people's emotions. You're dealing with people's feelings. You're dealing with people who's probably never heard someone say, I believe in you ever in life. You're dealing with with people overall, and this goes across all groups or whatever. Just no one ever really say, yo, I believe you can actually do that.
Yeah.
So as a part of my leadership, when I was just mentoring a brother. He actually had my position at the old branch I used to work at. He was the supervisor. I used to be supervisor at that very branch before I came manager. So this was really close to my heart. And he a brother. And like, he was just trying to figure it all out. I
Yeah.
said, well, first of all, brother, you were chosen out of, I'm sure, probably hundreds of people who applied for this position. So first of all, pause for a second and give yourself, a pat on the back for beating out 100 other people that was going for your position, and they chose you for a reason, G.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? If because I know that manager, like if that manager didn't see something in you, he wouldn't have chose you to be that supervisor. So now that we have that established, let's work on understanding what the actual function of your position is as supervisor. Supervisor, your job is to make branch manager's job as easy as possible. Just as my job as manager is to make my director's job as easy as possible. They get a whole bunch of work, they chop it up, they do the work that only they can do, then they delegate the rest to me. I chop it up, do the work that I can do, and I delegate the rest to my supervisor to continue the path going on. So you have to be able to understand that the role of supervisor is that I'm not just giving you the work for you to do it personally. I have to be sure that I teach you the art of delegation to be sure that you chop the work and be sure that you do the work that only you can do, but then you also delegate the work to the rest of the frontline staff that is for them to do. You are a part of you're a part of a hierarchy now, my friend. And what was difficult for him is because at one point it was all on the same level, and he got promoted amongst his peers.
Years.
So that can come with a difference. But I was like, but you have to, this is the systems thinking of everything. You have to understand that the function that you are now as supervisor is not the same function that you were as frontline associate. It's nothing personal, it's nothing whatever. We can still kick it and all that good stuff, whatever, as long as the work is getting done. My thing is we can work and have fun, or we can just work. But the work still has to get done. So understanding your function, because now supervisor, you have to ensure that you're giving the right work to the right people.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're just dumping. So you don't want to just dump work on people, because the feedback loop that's going to happen from that is you're going to get either staff burnout, staff non-participation, or whatever the case is. So you have to know your staff well enough to be sure that you're giving the children's work to the staff that's given potential children's proclivities, or if this person likes team stuff, be sure that you give them that work, and so on and so forth. You have to be well aware of your function and of those who that are below you and above you on the hierarchy to understand where you work at, to understand your place in that system. And you have to develop a self-confidence to understand that you have the necessary tools to fulfill the position that you're in the first place. So when you see things as in the through the lens of systems thinking, you see them everywhere. It kind of drive you crazy, but um, it's just making so much more sense to me, overall. So like, the like another part of it was processes. Like, all right, there's processes as in tasks that everybody has to do every day. So if something is not happening the way that the process says it's supposed to happen, the systems thinking of it is, well, let's not just automatically think incompetence of the employee. Let's look at the
Hmm.
system because the system itself is developing the outcome of this person not understanding how to fulfill this process. So maybe we need to go back and look at the way that look at onboarding, look at the way of training, making sure that me as manager, I'm communicating in such a way that my staff understands what a successful job is, what excellence is, what's the path of upward mobility is, and so on and so forth to create the system in which that we won't get that negative feedback loop.
Yeah.
So you have to be cognizant of that, and that's people and process place. Um, do the patrons have a clear path from entering the door to the checkout area or to the self checkout? Do you have jargon where it would be a lot cleaner if you would just say check out books here instead of information resource center here or whatever the case is? So like, and then um uh the overall goal is customer service as a means to alleviate as many burdens as possible to any patron that comes in. And then with the story, that can be intertwined with anything. I can talk to a person. I give you a perfect example. Literacy being my main focus. I talk to a mother that's wants to help their child read and succeed. I tell them about the reading program that we got during the summer. I lead them to our decodable readers and everything like that. And I have a conversation with her. I'm like, look, I want you to see the library as your village and have you understand that you are not alone in ensuring that your son or your daughter, uh, you know, gains the skills necessary to be a great reader. Myself and my staff have been literacy trained, and we actually care. You know what I'm saying? I will get on my knees and talk to the child themselves. Hey, yo, G, like, whatever books you need, yo, come to me. Y'all, like, I'm the one that always wears the funny African hat. You can call me anytime. Like the kids at the school that I volunteer at call me Mr. Flamingo. Whatever, whatever helps build that, that connection. I'm all
Or
good with. But it like, you know, uh, that changes library from cold institutional building brick and mortar to village. That's Afrocentric knowledge right there. I am because we are. You know what I'm saying? And all of these things that I have in my framework that we use, that we say on the regular and implement it in such a way that it became a leadership model. So um parts of all of those pieces, I think it's just surface level. And it has a lot of other layers beyond that, that if one is properly equipped to see it, recognize it, and cultivate it, will produce feedback that will make the library as a whole in a system in that sense run as smoothly as possible. But there's a lot of systems within systems that one has to
Mhm.
be cognizant of, and to be a proper manager, leader, and so on and so forth. Be sure that you know not only your position, know your function, know your library's function, and so on and so forth, to be able to be able to bring all of these things into fruition.
Yeah. You mentioned a little bit earlier about your presentation at the last ALA around
Yeah.
imposter syndrome.
hmm
Um, why do you think librarians specifically struggle with their voice? Um, and how does reclaiming that voice change the way a library functions as a system?
Um, well, I will speak from the context in which I made that speech at ALA is within the Black American context. The way that I broke it down was that the imposter syndrome was a extension of overall racism. And before people jump onto that, like as something like, yes, we have something to blame, the overall theme of it wasn't that. It was to position yourself in such a way that you don't have to take on that burden anymore. So I had quoted a book, and I'm a loosely quoted now. It said something to the effect of, "For the newly acquired African slave masters believed um, traits of manliness, self-direction, um, like manliness and self-direction, had to be stripped away, more or less, for the slave to be created." This particular chapter was on the male slave psychology, but it can be applied to everybody. So what we saw here is that there's two different people. There was the newly arrived African, and then there was the slave. And for this thing called a slave to exist, traits of self-direction, manliness, humanness, self-realization had to be stripped away for this thing called slave to even exist. So in the in my philosopher mind, I said, okay, these people always only call themselves slave master, not men master, not woman master, not free man master, not the only thing that they had mastery over was this conception that they created called a slave. So this then puts the vision on the Black librarian now. This slave master, oppressor oppressed paradigm only exists through a social contract in which both participants agree with the positions that they're playing. An oppressor doesn't exist if an oppressed people don't exist. So
Mm-hmm.
what happens when the oppressed people says, you know what, I'm going to no longer play the function of this system, of this relationship that we have. I'm not going to play the role of slave. I'm not going to play the role of the oppressed. I'm not going to play the role of the imposter. I'm the first chain that falls off of a slave is not the one on the wrist or on the ankles, it's the one of the mind. They always redefined themselves. So the moment that one redefines themselves as a librarian, that's one system. As a human being, that's a whole nother system. If you want to add your own personality and your own visions and whatever you have to life, again, now systems thinking again is this is at the person. So if a person has full self-confidence in themselves, that system placed into a library system is going to produce um, better programming, is going to produce more clear thinking of leadership and so on and so forth, because that person has that foundation of self. It's difficult for librarians and people in general because, like we said earlier, hell, most people haven't even been told by anyone outside of themselves that they believe in them. We're dealing overall with a depressed people, a burdened people, a sad people, a people that has grown up in environments in which that system tends to produce heartbroken, traumatized human beings. This is what they was raised in. This is how they was developed and molded. That doesn't change because now you have a job at the library or whatever the case is. But the ways that the libraries are trying to tackle this, in my opinion, is the wrong way. if you want to jump over this bar, you know what I'm saying? Like, say the goal was to get over this bar. I'm not going to lower it to the level that you're at for so that you can just tiptoe over it.
Mhm.
I'm going to make sure you do 100 squats a day, 1,000 squats a day to develop the foundation that it takes to create a new system in and of yourself that will give you the legs strong enough to jump over whatever hurdle that's in front of you.
I mean, the question was like, how does reclaiming that voice change the way a library functions as a system? And I think that sort of segues into my next question, which is how has your study of philosophy and information science changed, or has it changed your definition of what a leader should look like in today's modern libraries?
Philosophy has definitely influenced my perceptions of leadership and things like that, and the study of information science. Um, how is the I would say philosophy has more of an impact than the information science part because um a lot of times when it actually gets into management, you don't learn none of this at library school. You
Nope.
don't you don't you don't you don't learn about the psychologies of stuff like that. You don't learn about the different personalities of people and all that. And my undergrad was in business management, you know, and you don't even learn that there either. It's so much nuance, but I will say that I'm glad that I did have my undergrad in business management because it did help with just running the business side of libraries and things like that. How it influenced me in information in library school was that I saw a gap in um applied management. A lot of these folks, and I mean it with the absolute utmost respect. A lot of these, it's a difference between someone teaching you library management versus someone who actually been through it. You know what I'm saying? Like if 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 you're studied in it without the application of it, it's not going to hit in the same way as it should. As if me when I take on my mentees, you know what I'm saying? If I'm able to get the opportunity to train the trainers, they will in turn be able to train their frontline staff and so on and so forth to be the best library that they can be. Due to my background in philosophy, due to my background in business management, due to my background in retail management, and all of these things, um, I'm a manager that became a librarian. I'm not a librarian that became a manager. And I believe that distinction is paramount when it comes to leading the library on its various systems. Um, so all of that to say is going to the library school just helped me see because I was going to school while I was being a manager. I'm a manager already. So the things that I'm reading about versus what I'm actually doing about, sometimes there's a big gulf between those. And if anything else, it helped me develop my more librarian philosophy for leadership.
I think you touched on it a little um, earlier in our conversation about practical systems thinking. So you've argued that libraries often fail because their persuasion is accidental. So from a systems thinking perspective, what is the first sort of accidental habit most libraries should break to become more intentional?
In my ambition to combat the literacy crisis in my community, I told you about the successful program that we had like over the summer. That one went great, all of that good stuff. So I tried to extend that with another partnership with another organization. And this is a brand new idea I got with one of the principals. at the elementary school that I volunteer at, and the CEO of this organization, this literacy program, literacy organization. And I was like, what if we had a program that taught parents how to teach their kids how to read? So instead of having the literacy program to be strictly for the kids, it's like a training program of training parents and caregivers how to facilitate this. Everybody was on board. We had like a year's worth of dates. We had the flyers, all that to this school, everything printed up, all that good stuff. When I tell you, we only had one family show up at the very last date before they pulled the plug on it. We had people to say that they were interested.
Mhm.
We had people that say that at one time we actually had like 12 registrations and nobody showed up. And then
Yeah.
the next day, everybody is like, so what we saw was that people saw that it was a good idea, and people saw, I believe, the value of the idea. But somewhere between seeing the value and actually showing up, there was some kind of frick in systems thinking. We call that friction. There was some
Mhm.
friction there. Now, my branch, I'm a smaller branch, Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's when we're open to 8. All the other days we close at 6. So I was like, well, maybe we should have it on a Thursday since we're open later and all of that good stuff. So the plan of this program was around 6 o'clock. You know what I'm saying? We planned on having like events for the kids. I was even willing to put some money in to order some pizza or whatever the case is and all of that. And, again, uh people was like, oh man, great idea, great idea, great idea. But nobody showed up except that one family that one time. All right, systems thinking will look at it like this. The way that the system of the idea of the program that we created produce the outcome of nobody showing up. So now we have to look at the design of the program to see what can be altered to hopefully bring forth a different feedback loop, which would be more people coming into this program. So for this particular um situation, it was tricky because this was a partnership with an outside organization, so the dates was
Mhm.
kind of already set in stone. I wasn't able to move the dates and stuff like that. But when I thought about it afterwards, once um this didn't fare the way that we wanted it to, was you know when I get off and I kick my shoes off and all that good stuff, I'm not going back out. So
Right.
I was like, you know what, the time that we had, people would have to, not only get off, pick up their kid, go home, do whatever they got to do, and then go back out. That was that's the friction. So although, like weekends did kind of cross my mind, but I was like, yo, a weekend, like a Saturday, because we're closed on Sundays, Saturday, maybe, yeah, we close at 6, but maybe we could have done it either in the morning or in the afternoon where there's a more likely chance that the parent is either is off or whatever the case is, so that friction of going home, feeding my kid, putting the clothes back on to go back out because I don't want to wear the same clothes that I've been in these work clothes all day. Got to take the work clothes off, put on my comfortable shoes. Then I have to put on my, from my comfortable shoes, I might have to go, go from there to get the kid, get him back in the car seat and all that.
Mhm.
I say, you know what? On Saturday, they might have already been out
Yeah.
doing what they was doing, and they can integrate this as a part of their weekend plans that they was already doing. If we do it a little bit before lunch and offer some food, you know what I'm saying, that we could solve 2 issues with one pizza, there, or whatever the case is. So that situation had me step back and think about if we were to do it again, the things that I would alter to hopefully produce uh, better feedback than that. Because another thing with systems thinking is that there's often time delays between getting the feedback of the thing that you were trying to do. You know, I wasn't as well versed then as I am now. It wasn't too much of a delay because week after week people weren't showing up, and I just didn't have the vocabulary at the time to really understand what it was that I'm looking at. Because I tried to call them, hey, just reminding you, today is the day that we're going to do this. We look forward to seeing you. Oh yeah, we're going to be there. But again, when you take off them work shoes, when you take off that bra, when you take off whatever that takes the day off of the burden of the day off, it's a large ask for someone to come out again
Yeah.
and all of
Yeah.
that good stuff. So that's
It's
that's what
huge.
that's systems thinking in real time and all of that good stuff. So
And I think libraries have um, a habit of sometimes doing programs just for the sake of doing them. I used to work for someone whose goal was more programs, right? Like more programs. It doesn't matter if one person shows up or anything like that. Like they wanted a suite of programs and people weren't coming, but the expectation was still you have to do these programs. And even when data was brought, like, hey, we're doing these, but we're averaging literally one person a month. Is that really where we need to spend our dollars? Is that really where we need to spend our time? How does that benefit a staff member that's, taken from somewhere else off the desk, right, to sit for 2 hours in an empty meeting room or in an empty corner of the children's area? You know what I
mhm.
mean?
Yeah,
And I,
yeah.
and I think that's, another, I don't even know if it's accidental at this point, but I think that's a huge habit that libraries need to sort of reckon with when it comes to programs. Because, like, programming, yes, is a part of librarianship, of course, but is that a program that helps the system, or is it a program that helps the community? And how do you develop programs that meet both? So let's talk a little bit about the big picture of your work. Um, so your one of your goals anyway is to try to move people from curiosity to commitment. So in this digital distraction and misinformation world, what is, one truth or one value that you believe libraries should be most persuasive about right now?
In systems thinking, an organization's function is equivalent to a person's purpose. Each library system that I would hope for is to develop the function of the library in your community. Why are you here? Why are the communities that you serve better off with you here than not? Those are some of the deeper questions, deeper philosophical questions that one has to ask to develop an overall vision. Then you go into the vision and the missions and all that good stuff like that. But what is your why? What are we really here for? You know,
Mm.
my library system just got a new executive director, and she's gonna have like a state to the library address coming up next month and all of that good stuff. And I told my whole staff, I said, I want all of us front and center, notes. I've got a tape recorder and all of that good stuff to understand what the overall vision and the overall function that our new executive director actually wants for our library branch. And then once we get that, I scheduled a team meeting the very next day so it could be fresh on everybody's mind. Now we heard what our executive director was saying. How do we apply that, one, to systems thinking, and two, how do we apply that to the micro vision that we have at our branch right here? Because the overall vision of any library system is going to be the accumulation of all the branches that are under it. So The executive directors need to understand that, and this is how I understand it as a branch manager. So I take the micro of it. I have an overall vision for my branch. My branch, we make the community better by tackling the literacy crisis, and that school that we volunteer with went from below average to average, after our partnership, by the way, our little sprinkle, whatever,
Right.
whatever, just saying. But my overall vision for my I have an overall vision for my branch. Literacy, STEM, the
Mhm.
intellectual kind of things, especially within my sports loving rural areas in which many of these kids don't see themselves outside of the entertainer or the athlete. So as a part of that vision, I have to ensure as branch manager that my supervisors and my staff have a little piece of vision under the overall vision of the branch. I want the directives that come down from any executive level to be communicated efficiently through all the levels, that the frontline staff understands what the executive director's vision is, and the executive director understands the work that the frontline staff is putting in. The communication should go both ways, the energy should go both ways, and the smoothness of the workings of the system should work both ways, so that appreciation can be shared from the top down and from the bottom up, that everybody understands the role that finance plays, HR plays, local history plays, outreach plays, children's rooms plays, the front rooms, the front staff, the supervisor, the manager, the this. Everybody, I'm putting my staff through a boot camp that they gonna understand the workings of the library system, up, down, left, right, all the way through it. My goal as manager, as leader, as mentor, is to lead, guide not only the person that is fulfilling the function of the system that is the library, but also to have some kind of influence to the system of the personhood of the person that I'm dealing with, to know that they're capable of doing it in the first place.
So within that, you are sort of creating a shared language for the field through your writings on Substack, and then also through your consulting as well. So when you get to that position of being able to teach other people what leadership should look like, until then, though, if you could have every library student, worker, manager, supervisor, executive director, deputy director, whatever, if you could have those people read one philosophical text and a business or strategy text, what would they be and why?
It's funny that you say that, right? So one of the things that I did as manager was, I assessed my staff, and I got them all a book that I felt that would help them in their development and journey. Um, so shameless plug, forthcoming book for myself is going to be a book called Libraries as Systems. Outside of that, I will get a book called Thinking in Systems by Donella Meadows. That's the Bible of systems thinking. Um, yeah, that'd be the business book. A philosophical book. Mhm. I recommended this one book to one of my staff, and a few whatevers later, I noticed like two or three other staff also ended up getting this book too. I haven't read it personally, but apparently this has been one that's good. It's called The Mountain Is You. That book looks like it looks to be a very powerful one amongst my staff. Um, and I'm already promoting it, like, yo, y'all can do a book club amongst one another. You know what I'm saying? Get some off desk time, chop it up with each other and all of that. Um, so just off of the strength of how that one's taken over my branch, I would recommend that one. But like my personal books, hmm. It would be The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. That one is all about finding what he calls your personal legend, your purpose, the why of why you're here. But you know what, for real, as I'm saying all of this, the most important book that you could probably get is an empty notebook and a pen and just start writing. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? And it like, journaling, it don't it, you ain't writing for nobody else but yourself. Get them thoughts out, get your dreams out, get your fears out. I know we live in a hustle, hustle, hustle culture, but if you do this, I would recommend literally getting a pen and paper, not typing it, not, I know everything's, but the art of writing is a meditation. It's from brain to hand and then from hand to paper. And you're taking your time actually writing down the thoughts. Try to capture as many thoughts as possible while you're, and you know what? On top of that, try to write it as neatly as possible. Take your time, slow down. You're not in a rush to go anywhere. Thoughts will come and go. Don't worry about that. But take your time, get a pen and paper, and actually write. And I say a pen because with a pencil, it's easy to erase. We're not worrying about that. Just take a pen, something that's semi-permanent, on the paper. Try to write as neatly as possible. Trying to write out and write out your thoughts, whatever they are. It don't have to be a story. It don't have to be a grand thing. It doesn't have to be something that you're trying to monetize off of later. None of that. That's going to be your most important book that anybody can get into.
So before I ask my last couple of questions, is there anything that you would like for our listeners to know? Just, any final thoughts around systems thinking, management, leadership, something that they should absolutely know if they don't take anything else away from our conversation today?
I would say that you know librarianship is akin to like being a teacher in a sense that I think that you have to be led to take on the profession of librarianship. And um I think you, listener, are here for a reason. You, listener, are especially listening to this particular episode at this particular time for a particular reason. And maybe you was dealing with self-doubt, fear, and disbelief for a myriad of reasons. Maybe someone tried to not make it seem like you don't fit in because of this or that or the third, or maybe someone called you stupid when you was young, and there's a burden that carried on, throughout your adulthood and all of that. Yo, we've all been through it. We've all had to deal with certain traumatic things, and that we had to deal with. But you know, whatever that is, all of the decisions and all the things that you made up until from then brought you to this point right here, right now, listening to your brother whom we may never meet in person. But like, look, yo, you here for a purpose. You're here for a reason, and you're more than well equipped to do whatever it is that you're designing to do. uh don't give the pen of destiny to anybody else outside of yourself. You are the ones that's supposed to hold that pen. You're the one that's supposed to dig into the depths of your soul and try to figure out what's actually buried under there. These are tasks and things that cannot be given to anybody else. And the reason that you're feeling the way that you're feeling is because you are giving it to somebody else. You're trying to get definition. You're trying to get either definition or recognition or a validity from any outside source. But you got to know that you are from jump. Like you woke up. You woke up like this. You know what I'm saying? Like no, like Bob Marley and Marcus Garvey said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. None but ourselves can free our mind. None but ourselves can free our mind. You can only be destroyed by believing that you truly are what the white world considers. So don't be that. Don't be the imposter. You have a choice. You know, you have the ability to define yourself. So do it and walk that out. Word to DJ Unk, rest in peace. Walk it out. This is where the mainstream whatever is deceiving you. Is like if you take on this identity or this that and the third identity, that all of a sudden that you're not going to face any kind of trials or tribulations. That's a lie. So you're going to face trials and tribulations because you become refined by going through the refining fire. That's the trials and tribulations of your life. You're not being picked on because of that. You're a human being that's experiencing what every human being has ever experienced ever in life ever, period. And you're only on this life but for such a short time. So don't be distracted. You gotta find out what your purpose is as a librarian. And look, you might end up developing yourself in such a way that when it comes to issues of politics or something like that, we might disagree. And guess what? That's okay too. So like, yo, shake all of the lies that history, the devil, or whatever it is that you want to say, yo, shake it off. Shake it off. No, and let me be real with you. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. So you might as well shake it off and try to be the best that you can be. You don't need apologies from nobody. You don't need validations from nobody. You don't need nothing from anybody for you to be the best you that you can be. If you need permission, damn it, here it is. From my mouth to your ears. Here's your permission to be the greatest that you can be, even if that greatest version of yourself might end up disagreeing with me somewhere down the line. That's cool, but be you. You are here. You're an individual. You have been blessed with this gift called life, and that journey from womb to tomb is so short.
So these are always the closing questions that I ask of every guest. So, what creative works are currently occupying your time?
1,001 things at a time. Oh my gosh. So like I said earlier, I'm working on a book, Libraries as Systems. Um, I'm also working / on a leadership book called The Leadership Dialectic. Um, Amongst that, I'm still refining like the framework of LSPM and I have a workbook, the actual framework and all of that good stuff. So just basically building this model is taking up the most of my that's taking up most of my time outside of real life stuff. Um yeah, I would say those are the main things. Working on a few books, working on this leadership model, trying to get my voice out there a little bit more, break out of my hermit uh comfort zone and and all of that good stuff. So yeah, I would say those are my most uh direct endeavors.
What's one thing you will always be proud of?
Myself. Man, shoot.
I know that's right.
Myself, yo. I was just telling my wife the other day, man, I was like, I've been through some things, man, and like still standing, still strong.
Mhm.
And you know, stuff that'll make you when you just sit there and think about it. And I got friends that I was in high school with and younger, like that not even here no more.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and there but go but for the grace of God go I. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And as it's an underrated blessing just to come home from work every day or whatever. Like, we just had this ice storm situation and all of that good stuff. We went through it fairly unfettered. You know what I'm saying? I went down there, I brought my whole family down to my to grandma's house. You know what I'm saying? I had to make sure my old lady was good, and we was all good and all of that good stuff. And sitting there thinking like, yo, my mom's getting older. You know what I'm saying? And you know, uh and in a lot of ways, I've become her anchor, and like that is such a an honor to be in that position, to be my mom's comfort zone when as she getting older, she's like she know if anything else she can call her son to make sense of this crazy world. You know what I'm saying? To be a husband, to be a father, like these are the I won. You know what I'm saying? Like I got me a nice little house out here in the country, good little bit of land. I got a few chickens. You know what I'm saying, and all that good stuff. And I'm walking, I'm talking, I'm doing well, and
Mhm.
I refuse to be defeated mentally on anything. So, and that's something that I held on to. That's something I held on to ever since my father passed. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm damn right. I'm proud of myself.
What's the most surprising thing you've learned about yourself?
That if you be still for a minute, my brain, your brain, our brains will naturally try to find a solution to whatever problem is that we're dealing with. That process gets disturbed through stress, through fear, through feelings of inadequacy and all of that good stuff. But like, yo, if you just like chill for a minute, be and calm though, like eventually those wild thoughts will calm down. Solutions come. Like whether it's just like library stuff or life stuff or whatever. It's like, yo, you're gonna be all right. And I know this is not the end of whatever journey that I'm on. And even if it was, I did well. I did the best with the resources that I had. And that's again something that I'm proud of. And you know, I don't think there's nothing. It ain't over till I win. You know what I'm saying? And if I ain't win yet, I guess that means it ain't over. So I guess I'm gonna keep on trucking.
Um, what does life after libraries look like for you?
I would love to be a professor. I, I
Mm,
would I would love to develop a course called the Philosophies of LIS. And what I would do in that course is take the whatever hot topics of the time, from neutrality, let's say from neutrality to book bans or whatever the case is, and have, like, let's say neutrality or something. I would have the people who agree with it take the position against it, and people who are against it take the position for it, and then have them debate amongst themselves for the position that is opposite of the one that they came in agreeing with, just to ensure that we're creating the next generation of librarians that are open-minded enough to look at whatever issues that we're dealing with a broad enough perspective to be as unbiased as possible by understanding whatever topics thoroughly. Because an issue I feel right now is the echo chamber. A lot of people are just repeating a lot of talking points that's not really delving any deeper than the surface. So that would be my ultimate. That's my ultimate goal. You know, be a nice little tenured professor. You know what I'm saying? Teaching that to the next generation.
that's cool. That's cool. Um, those are my questions. This has been enlightening. Um, I've certainly learned a lot. And I hope that our listeners take something away from this conversation as well. Before I let you go, though, if people wanted to connect with you further beyond this episode, like where can they find you online?
Yeah, for sure. You can find me on Instagram at LSPM Framework. That's the tag, LSPM Framework. You also, check out my new website, www.christopherafleming.com. Be sure you put the A in there because there's a christopherfleming.com that is not me. So www.christopherafleming.com, and it'll be cool to see some traffic build, all that, and I'll be like, yo, Marquita, you did it, yo, drinks on me, you feel me, and all of that. But yeah, outside of that, the People's Librarian on Instagram. I don't really TikTok much, but I think it's the same on there too. But either look up the People's Librarian, ChristopherAFleming.com, LSPM Framework. That's where you'll find me.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. Well, I will let you go. Have an amazing evening, and thank you once again.
Appreciate you. Thanks.
For more information, you can visit us online at www.blackinthestacks.com and find us on most social media platforms at Black in the Stacks.